And we're coming up now with our feature presentation for the evening.
America's premier Jewish broadcast on the air since 1981.
And now, here's your host.
And we're back with a case that's, I think, has been getting some play in Europe. It hasn't gotten much play in the United States. And tonight's broadcast is meant to correct that. This is a developing story. And we have with us tonight Madam Beth Rebecca Alexander, mother of the twins Benjamin and Samuel. She's a Cambridge graduate, currently an attorney in London. And she was separated from her husband, Dr. Michael Schlesinger, in 2009 after 3 years of marriage. The couple formally divorced in 2015. She's seeking custody to be able to have actually visitation of her children, which she's been denied. Rabbi Moshe Aryeh Friedman, former chief rabbi of Vienna, Austria, he representing her in the case, an attorney. We've had him on before many times. Formerly brought the Neturei Karta to Iran, but on this broadcast, he renounced Neturei Karta. He's now acting as a lawyer, and we appreciate help in putting together the broadcast tonight. And Mr. Paul Harris is the editor of the Jewish Telegraph. So thank you, everybody, for coming on to the show tonight. And let me begin with you, Madam Beth Rebecca Alexander, formerly Schlesinger, mother of the twins Benjamin and Samuel. So tell us what exactly is going on for people who may not be familiar with the case outside of England and Vienna.
This is a very tragic case. It's devastating that it's even had to get this far. It should never have had to reach the point that I've had to go on public air to just plead just to be able to see my children. But I've been fighting for 10 years. My children are 12 years old now, and they're about to celebrate their bar mitzvah in June. I'm not sure of the date because I've not been informed about the celebration, the date, anything to do with anything that's going on in their lives. And this is not a fight about money, property. This is just a fight. It's not even, it's a battle to just be a mother to my children. And, this is a very, an obstinate person that he doesn't want the children to have their mother in their lives. And we're just appealing to the community of Vienna to pressure him to do the right thing and to do the sensible thing and to restore sanity in a very insane situation.
Because you're not allowed visitation, is that correct?
So the last court ruling in November 2021 was a no contact order. Zero contact, no phone calls, no contact, no holidays at all.
I know it's nothing. So I know it's very painful, but why did the courts rule that way? What was the thinking of the courts?
So it's been going on for such a long time. I mean, that every decision has been more bizarre than the next. There's no logic, there's no rationale to any of it. Every lawyer that's seen the papers, we've had top barristers, the best legal teams in the world looking at these papers, they can't get their heads around it because the decisions just don't make sense. There is no justification whatsoever.
Let me turn to Rabbi Mosharier Friedman. He is representing you in this case as a lawyer. You're not a lawyer, but so how did you get involved in the case? How do you get to be a lawyer when you don't have really a law degree, but you know a lot about the law?
Yes, I came into the case by divine coincidence, and me as many others. So actually, it's not only me trying to help. Every human being is getting shocked what has happened, what's going on here. There was a lot of efforts, in particular from the whole British jury on the case. Everyone is entirely very impressed by the personality of Mrs. Beth Alexander. So that makes the event a tragic event that never happened before, even in the juridical system in Austria. And given my experience with the legal system of Austria, among others, I was very sure that I will be able to help. So it was my duty to help, and therefore that's the reason of my getting into the case in the first place, which ended up that I filed already last week the petition in the Austrian court to have the sole custody of Madame Alexander and then when she
But
will have.
on what basis, Rabbi Friedman, do you think you might be able to change the court's thinking? Because in previous court rulings, they sided with the ex-husband. What makes you think they're going to change course now? I hope they do.
Well,
What makes you think?
yes, well, if you allow me to summarize, in
Sure.
summary conclusion, what happened is that in the beginning, the entire system, whether it was the court, the social services, all unanimously supported her. They all recommended her to have the sole custody. They even made a ban for the husband, given a very abusive, sadistic person towards her and the children, not to and come near the children. She was the one, despite the recommendations, that she was going out of her way that he should have all the visitation rights while she had the custody. But it was something which happened out of the blue in a very suspicious manner a year later, that she was ripped away overnight by police without any explanation. She was not notified. And then it turned out that the whole decision was based on a certain illusion or a misleading element, saying that we believe that if the husband will have although the husband is very violent and abusive with all the problems, that if he will have the custody, the Madame Alexander would receive a very smooth, regular visitation right. And then step by step, this ended up all together that she's in a situation that the children were robbed off from her entirely. They were not only robbed off from her, they were robbed off from the entire outside world. They are not gaining any access from any social services or any medical treatment. So the reason being that she will receive the custody now is because because even according to the court order, the whole idea was that Madame Alexander should have unlimited visitation rights. And that was the reason why. It was not that the court has forbidden her seeing the children. It's just that the court, under the pressure from the Israelitische Kultusgemeinde, surrendered to the pressure, and they just didn't grant her minimum, most obvious rights she should have received.
Did you say, Rabbi Friedman, that the Jewish community in Vienna is supporting the husband?
Yes, this is the merits of the case. The whole issue here is from A to Z is that the Israelitische Kultusgemeinde, the Jewish community there, have put all their infrastructure to the disposal of the husband, that the courts should not have the courage to give for Madame Alexander her minimum, most obvious rights, for the only sin that because she is British. She's not Austrian, she is British, so they're saying let's side with the stronger one. Let's make sure she's leaving Austria. We deport her one way or another. That's what happened. They were siding with the husband, but in the strongest possible terms during all the procedure. So there is a big scandal about the justice, how it was going. It is a member of the Kultusgemeinde who was one of the judges here. So it is a very shocking case. Even those who were...
Wait, are you saying that one of the judges is a member of the community?
Yes.
Wouldn't there be a conflict of interest if they came out supporting the husband?
Yes, absolutely.
Well, actually, could I just clarify? He's not the judge with legal standing on the case. She intervened. She actually meddled in the case when she has no place to be there. She contacted the judge on the case, and as a friend of family Schlesinger.
Wow.
I applied to recuse the judge on the case, Judge Gertlicher, on the basis of bias. And instead of it being sent to an independent court for accountability, to account for the bias, she was able to decide on the decision, on the application herself. And she said, yes, I was contacted by this family friend who's a judge, but that doesn't make me biased, and I'm able to stay on the case.
Now, prior to having Rabbi Mosharier Friedman, who's become your lawyer, you've had other lawyers previously. What did your lawyers tell you? What seemed to be the problem that they couldn't be able to address that Rabbi Friedman is now able to address?
I've had one lawyer after the next, and I found myself with each one, they suddenly and inexplicably just would drop the case. It's like each one of them was warned off. And I've had a confirmation from Rabbi Friedman that is very possible, that's as a result of pressure exerted from the community, that they've tried to leave me unrepresented.
So in other words, the lawyers dropped off one by one. You hired different lawyers, and they ended up leaving.
Without any reasoning, that they would take my money and then just drop the case, hand it back.
Interesting. So you may have some legal recourse against the lawyers if they didn't represent you and they gave them money. Interesting thought.
One charged me €12,000 to do one appeal, and we actually sued him because that's against the legal rules, the legal guidelines in Vienna, and I lost the case. I've lost every single decision almost in this case.
Is your former husband a very affluent individual?
No, that's contrary to public perception. He's not anything. He's not from a prominent family. He's not from a wealthy family, but he just has the right connections to people who do have the influence and the power within.
So why would unity support him if he doesn't have the power or the influence or the money? Why?
That's what I think. We've been breaking our heads for 10 years until Rabbi Friedman came along and confirmed for me that it's actually the whole body of the community as a whole who has done that. We were trying to work out, where's it coming from? Who is responsible? Who's behind him? There is a mafia here, but we couldn't work out which members. Was it Constanza Tau? Was it this family, for which we do know it has been her? But which other members? And why? I mean, why would they want to do this to two vulnerable children? It doesn't make sense. This is not about me, and it's not about him. It should only be about the welfare of two voiceless, innocent, very vulnerable children at the end of the day. That's all this is about.
Let me turn to Paul Harris. He is the editor of the Jewish Telegraph. I know he has taken upon himself to be helpful in your case. So, Paul, we appreciate your being here. Being a journalist, from your perspective and from your reporting, what have you discovered in this particular case?
I first visited Beth in Vienna more than 9 years ago, purely as a journalist looking into this story about which we'd heard. That was the last occasion I treated this purely as a story. And I have to tell you that a major campaign was launched on behalf of Beth to bring her children back to her last weekend. And Beth actually asked me, am I compromising my editorial impartiality by introducing the campaign? And I said, well, I'm not impartial in this at all. I'm foursquare behind her. I can't be impartial. When I first visited Vienna, I was absolutely shocked to discover the cover-ups, the lies, the xenophobia, the intrigue. It was unbelievable. I would never have believed it had I not heard and seen it for myself. I've been lied to by a prominent rabbi in the community. I spoke to the then chief rabbi, whose only answer when I asked him to intervene on Beth's behalf was, it's too complicated. This seemed to be the answer from everybody. The community has sided with Dr. Schlesinger purely because he is one of their own and because Beth is an outsider. And this seems to be the general attitude in Vienna, possibly in Austria as a whole. They look after their own. Anybody from outside, they try to drive them out and ensure that they don't get justice. I've seen interference with the due process, the judicial process. I've heard and taped one of Beth's former best friends admitting how she lied and how she got Beth to see somebody she believed was some sort of therapist when they were actually trying to prove that she was mentally unstable. The story has been described as Kafkaesque. It's not Kafkaesque. This is a true story. Kafka is fiction. It's so incredible. It's hard to believe, but it is true. I've seen it with my own eyes. I'm an experienced journalist, and I wouldn't have gone to the lengths in reporting the story as I had I not believed every word of it and seen it all for myself.
Now, the Jewish Telegraph where is the area that it covers?
Well, we have 4 papers. We have separate papers in Manchester, Leeds, Liverpool, and Scotland. And Beth is from Manchester, which was how my interest first was aroused in this.
We're looking at a very, very special case, and it's dealing with custody of children, twin trials. Their bar mitzvah is coming up in a few months, and the mother would love to have the possibility of being part of that bar mitzvah celebration. She's been shut out by her ex-husband and by the courts in Vienna. And Madam Beth Rebecca Alexander is our guest, mother of the twins Benjamin and Samuel. Rabbi Mosharier Friedman is a former chief rabbi of Vienna, Austria. He's representing Beth in the case. He's the attorney. Mr. Paul Harris is with the Jewish Telegraph, and who has not only been covering it, but is also an advocate for getting a resolution in this particular case. When we come back, we'll take some of your phone calls at 212-769-1925, 212-769-1925. Emails are one way to have some of your questions answered, zevbrenner@gmail.com, zevbrenner@gmail.com.
From the moment I first heard about Beth's story some years ago, I was extremely saddened to hear about her plight and the plight of her sons. All of us who know Beth know her to be a loving, caring, and giving person, and most importantly of all, a wonderful and loving mother. And the fact that she has been separated from her children and has not been part of their lives for so long has been a most terrible tragedy. Now that Samuel and Benjamin's bar mitzvah is approaching, it is inconceivable that such a formative part of their lives should pass without her involvement, without her presence, both in the lead up to their big day and also on the day itself. It is for this reason that I've been trying to do whatever I can in order to help Beth and her campaign. And I implore all of you, wherever you might be, to do likewise.
And that's Chief Rabbi Ephraim Mervis, Chief Rabbi of England, with an appeal for our guest. Madam Beth Rebecca Alexander is the mother of twins Benjamin and Samuel. She's a graduate from Cambridge. She's currently an attorney in London. She's fighting to get visitation and custody of her twin boys before their mitzvah, especially Rabbi Mosharier, Friedman's former chief rabbi of Vienna, Austria. He's the attorney representing her in the case. And Paul Harris is with the Jewish Telegraph, and he's taken a personal interest in helping Madam Beth Rebecca Alexander get her two boys back. Now, I understand that Chief Rabbi Mervis not only came out with a statement, he went to Vienna to try to change things. Can anybody tell us about what happened when the Chief Rabbi went to Vienna?
Well, perhaps I can come in there. I think Beth's looking a little bit upset at the moment. So he met communal leaders there. He met rabbis. He actually went to see the children themselves, and he himself photographed them. And I know from speaking to both him and his representative, he was shocked by what he found and what he saw. But even the chief rabbi of the United Kingdom and the Commonwealth could not get these intransigent people to move or do anything.
And the reason being because the Austrian legal system is backing them up in this particular case. So the chief rabbi from England couldn't appeal, but unless they're going to work with the judiciary in Austria, nothing's going to change. They seem to be all...
The chief rabbi can't interfere with the judiciary in Austria, but he could, and he did try to influence the community to get them to bring pressure on the Schlesinger family to see sense here and to let a loving mother be reunited with her children. This is called parental alienation. It's an absolute disgrace. I've been with Beth. I've seen her in her own home with her children. I've seen the love that she shows for them, and even more so that they show for her, which just shows what a tissue of lies the children were forced to bring before the court in Vienna, where they actually were made to say that they didn't want to see their mother. They wanted no contact. This is an absolute lie. I know it is. I've seen Beth with the children. I've seen their love for her and her love for them. It's complete nonsense, fabrication, interference.
I think the worst thing, Zev, is that the community keeps saying, well, there's a court order in place. What do you want us to do? And we all know how that court order was obtained. It was obtained illegally. There's no foundation whatsoever. The substance of the order is complete rubbish. But to just use this excuse, in Nuremberg, there was also court orders. People were just following orders. And the worst of it all is they're doing all of this. They use this German term, Kindeswohl, in the interests of the children, and nothing could be further from the truth. None of this is in the interest of the children. How can it be in the interest of the children to deprive them of their mother?
And what Beth hasn't told you is that she was subjected to phony, fabricated psychiatric reports about herself put before the court. On one occasion, questions were put to her before she was even fluent in German. She was unable to answer the questions properly or in any way, and this was used as sufficient evidence to show her mental instability.
I mean, they used the most ridiculous grounds. They said the children were disgusting. I can't believe a father would even describe his children in this way. His argument for taking the children was the children were retarded because at 2 years old, they didn't speak 200 words. And obviously I was to blame as their mother. They insulted me that I didn't apply, they ridiculed me for my Cambridge degree, that I didn't apply my academic abilities to my child raising. I mean, they just found flaws. They picked holes at me every which way they could.
Now, what I found, that, and I sympathize and empathize with you, Beth, what I found also especially, I can't understand it. You were forced to take down pictures of your boys from Facebook at one point. Yeah. Tell us about it. Why was that? That seems bizarre. Why were you required to remove all pictures of you and the boys from Facebook?
So it was during the times I had visitation, and I just wanted to show my family back home. They didn't have access to the children, and I was posting our lovely visits, happy, lovely, wonderful days out together, the children laughing, smiling, and all the fun things we did together. And he, just to prove our love and the tight bond that we shared, and he couldn't bear it. He didn't want the world to see the evidence of the love we have for one another and how much the children are attached to me. So I was forced, I got a court ban. I had to take it all down. I had to take my blog. I had a blog that I was writing updates about the court proceedings. I was forced to remove that. They've basically tried to gag me and silence me because I'm exposing what's happening.
Is that ban still in place? Can you put up pictures now on Facebook, or that is not allowed?
I'm not supposed to, but I mean, the law, they don't seem to apply the law, but they use the law against me, but they're above the law. So, I mean, when the law is bizarre like that, there's no, it's just a mockery, isn't it?
Now, you and your husband are modern Orthodox, correct?
Yes.
And religion is not an issue in this particular case.
It's not it's not a religious issue. It's a humanitarian issue. I don't think religion comes into it.
So let me ask Rabbi Moshe, let me ask you this question. Did you ever consider going to a court of Jewish law? And I understand that's going to be adjudicated by a court in Austria. They have the final decision. Was there ever consideration going to a Bezdin, the convening of Bezdin, and forcing the husband to go before the court of Jewish law and seeing if that could be helpful in the case?
But Zev, the procedure here was not started by Madame Alexander, but it was started by Dr. Schlesinger. He started the procedure in court. And here we are confronted with a situation that we have really a biased community, a community who has done everything in their position to go against her, to drive her out from Vienna. The rabbis, the presidents of the communities, all together. It's really an entire community in Vienna versus a very beautiful, loved community in England. And what we are trying to do is to have not only the British jury, but also to have the world jury also to interfere and have the influence on Vienna. But if you allow me, I will elaborate on 2 points here. First of all, the Vienna Jewish community, the Israelische Kultusgemeinde, has an extraordinary, very negative and black record in being in contempt of court. They were in the past being executed of millions and millions of euros of fines, and they announced they will never comply with court orders. Now the Vienna community is unlike any other Jewish community in the world. They are not financing their schools in the synagogues by themselves. They are being financed by the government. The reason being they're being financed by the government is because of the World Jewish Congress and others, because of the history, pressure other countries in the world to are pressuring Austria to subsidize them. So therefore, I think the influence of the international community on Vienna is tremendous. And I would rather give a very special appeal on Mr. Ronald Lauder, the son of Esti Lauder. He is the most influential figure internationally, who would, one phone call from him to Vienna would be extremely helpful, because the children are being captive in hijacked by the Jewish community in Austria in his houses. If he gives one phone call to Vienna, this whole issue is solved.
The children
Well,
attend Chabad Lauda school. The name of the school is Chabad Lauda.
So it's not that the court has banned her from the children, it's the Jewish community who keep them captive and not allowing her to access the children. It's not the court. We just asked the Jewish community in Vienna, the Kultusgemeinde, to stop interfering in the court. By the way, Zev, knowing the file now, I know each and every judge, each and every ministry official in this case I have been dealing before. So I know this, you can imagine every angle of this case. So that makes me so confident. And I think the problem lies in the whole jury. I think the whole jury has to make an end to it, because there is the Kultusgemeinde Vienna is very much a burden on the Jewish community worldwide rather than anything else. So I think it would be very helpful if Mr. Lauder can interfere and give one phone call to finish this bizarre.
Have you tried reaching out to Ron Lauder in New York?
I think it would be very helpful.
We had a campaign years ago. We had thousands and thousands and thousands of supporters. I was informed that we crashed his email account with so many letters, and we had zero response, not even an acknowledgement. And I personally met him. He came to give a speech in Vienna, and I went up to him at the end. It was an unrelated issue, but he was talking about actually reviving Jewish life in Vienna after the war, after the Holocaust. And I went up to him and I said, "You're talking about reviving Jewish life. There's 2 Jewish souls here that desperately need help, that are being neglected and abused, and that are suffering on your watch. Please do something." As a mother, begging to you, pleading to you for help. And he just turned away from me and walked away. No compassion, no feeling.
I approached 770 in New York. I went to see them at Lubavitch headquarters, and I've spoken to them. I tried to get them to intervene, pointing out that what was happening was the very antithesis of everything that Chabad stands for, which is Jewish continuity, Jewish education, the children being happy and content in a Jewish home. Nobody takes any notice. Nobody's interested whatsoever. And this is the crux of the problem.
But I think that I must add something here, that the Lubavitcher Rebbe actually gave instructions back in the 70s for his community not to be members and not to be involved as a Lubavitch community in the Israelitische Kultusgemeinde. So I think the problem lies more in the leaders abroad, like Mr. Lauder, to give the instruction. They're very special Lubavitch people in Austria and elsewhere, but I think in this case here it is Mr. Lauder who is the most influential figure in the World Jewish Congress. He's also a colleague of Mr. Musikant, who is the actual president of the Kultusgemeinde, rather instead of Mr. Deutsch is Mr. Musikant. So Mr. Lauder is the one where the problem could be solved.
Also, Chabad, may I add here, Chabad are very selective in what they follow of the preachings of the Rebbe. We found a video online of the Lubavitcher Rebbe talking about the importance of a Jewish mother in a child's life and how you must never separate a child from their mother, but they choose to disregard that.
Mm-hmm.
So putting the Ron Lauder option on the side, obviously for some reason he doesn't want to get involved. I don't know. I haven't spoken about it, so I don't know. But Rabbi Friedman, you mentioned before that the community is involved with the judiciary, and that's why they're working hand in hand. So what makes you think, even if you know the judge, what makes you think that you can make a difference if there is a tight relationship between the Austrian judiciary and the community in Austria?
Good question, but Zev, I did make a difference before. I did have I'm still a young person, but a long way behind me. And have in particular so much experience, which I succeeded in. I can assure you that I have won each and every case against the Israelitische Kultusgemeinde. So I think for
what did you sue them? What did you sue them before?
A lot of things. I was sued for myself, and I went. And there was a lot of cases which I sued them. I had even between 5 and 8 million euros of fines against them. I actually took their bank accounts in their houses and put a lien on it, and to execute fines because they were contempt of court. I have went against them each and every case. Unfortunately, unlike Madame Alexander, who was there alone, I did succeed. And actually, most of the figures involved in the case, whether they are judges or ministry officials, city officials, all of them I have been dealt before. So I have been very successful. I don't take credit for myself, but I was very successful with all of them. So I have every reason to believe that there will be a game changer. Therefore, I'm doing that. It's not only me trying to help. It's it's the entire Jewish community which is heartbreaking for Madame Alexander, and to safeguard her children. The issue is here in particular to safeguard children in captivity under a sadistic regime and under a dictatorial regime of the Quds commander. So I think the Jewish community at large can be very, very helpful here. It is in the interest of all parties concerned that this should happen.
Zev, can I just reassure all the doubters about Rabbi Friedman's sincerity about helping me? When Rabbi Friedman, he only got involved a few weeks ago, and I have to say he's done more for me than any rabbi in the last 10 years. And the fact that he's a German speaker, he's been able to look at all my documents. He's been absolutely fantastic. He's really put his money where his mouth is. I've had so many people come and offer help, and they just pay lip service. Oh yes, I'll help you. And then they just abandon me and walk away. I've been disappointed so many times. And Rabbi Friedman has he's walked the walk and talked the talk. He's put together a legal masterpiece for me. I read his application, which he's lodged with the court. It's the most brilliant application. He's grasped my case so quickly. He's got the sharpest legal mind. I'm just so impressed by the work.
Even though he's not, you're an attorney, but he's not an attorney, right? That's
well, my German skills are not as good as Rabbi Friedman's. I can get by. I mean, I wasn't a fluent speaker. I can get by because I had to learn. I had to learn it very quickly, fighting this court battle. But Rabbi Friedman was able to write beautifully in German and go through the documents with a fine-tooth comb, and he understood it all very, very quickly.
Some listeners might wonder why. Some listeners might wonder why the establishment in Austria is so keen to support the Jewish community there and override even legal matters. And I'd like to offer an opinion which I think is not incorrect. There is a guilt complex here because of what happened during the Holocaust, and they tend to move heaven and earth to be seen to be supporting the Jewish community, very erroneously sometimes, as in this case.
no, interesting observation, because I would assume there's a lot of anti-Semitism in Austria today. So
can I say something? People think the Austrians, oh my gosh, it was Austria in the past. The worst part about this case is actually it's not the Austrians were very good to me. There were many kind, caring Austrians that went to the ends of the earth to help me, social workers, doctors. They could see that justice wasn't being done, and they were trying to support me, and the Jewish community were actively working against them. So in this case, it's not the Austrians who are against me, it's the Jews, which is the most shocking part of all for me in this case.
Zev, may I add,
yes.
Iterate once again that the entire Austrian system was on her side. I met them last week, quite a number of those involved before, and they reconfirmed to me the merits of the case. So I can assure you that I know this case now very well. I know those major players here, and I think we should we have to distinguish. There is two things here. We are here. We entered a very strong battle in court to receive really as soon as possible the sole custody from Madame Alexander due to the urgency and the danger the children are in, also on the circumstances.
When you say danger, what danger they have now is
because
5
there
years
was
or 10 years ago.
Yes, there was danger even back then. Madame Alexander is trying 10 years to have access to social services and others, which until today it didn't happen. So it is really a strong cover-up. Even the major leading officials dealing with the Austrian war scandals, like the one who was being kept captive, like Natascha Kampusch, or the victims of Mr. Fritzl, if you know, there is those famously known or unfamously known, happened in Austria, those officials told me that when they see this case, this is a very, very shocking case, and it's really a cover-up. And they are really not only robbing off the children from Madame Alexander, they're robbing off the children from the outside world and the social services to have access to.
The children have always been in danger. At the time when they were first taken, they were 2 years old. 6 danger reports were filed. There were reports from neighbors that they heard screaming going on from the father's flat night and day. There were reports from the school that my little Benjamin was self-harming. He was running against the wall and hurting himself. And yet I was begging, I was crying everybody for help. I was running to every single psychologist organization, pleading and crying, and they just kept shutting the case and slamming doors. And it's the most horrific feeling as a mother to know that your children are being abused and you're completely powerless and you're screaming from the rooftops for help and nobody will listen to you. And you can't save your children, you cannot protect your children.
Did your ex-husband ever get remarried?
No.
So he's a single parent of the children for the last 10 years.
The whole marriage was a sham to begin with. I believe he was pushed into marriage to prove to the community that he could be a husband and a father. And I feel like I was just a breeding machine, because once I even got pregnant, he was plotting to get rid of me. I was redundant, surplus to requirements.
Have you tried reaching out to his parents or his siblings or his friends or anybody that's connected to him?
It's a ring of steel. They're all protecting him. There's no point.
Zev, if I can just come in here,
Sure.
there are 2 points to mention here. Those young children, very young children, spent more time with 2 Filipino carers than with their mother, day in, day out. They were the ones who brought them up during the day, spent all their time with them. And there's another aspect here which is really, really odd, a story which we ran in the Jewish Telegraph, and Beth will confirm. Dr. Schlesinger's own father was alienated from his children as well. He was not allowed to see Dr. Schlesinger or his children. His ex-wife alienated them also. So this was history repeating itself.
And that's why it's so important to break this cycle, because how many more generations is this going to continue, this alienation? I mean, his mother did it to him, and are my children going to abuse their wives, and it's going to continue forevermore? Somebody has to come in here and say enough is enough and stop it.
You hear the pain of the mother of Madame Beth Rebecca Alexander, mother of the twins Benjamin Samuel. 10 years that she's not been able to have custody of the kids or even have visitation with the children. She's trying to get it, especially.
No, sorry, I've had visitation. That's not quite true. I've had visitation.
Yeah, but not currently.
No.
You had some visitation, but do you currently have any visitation?
I had to fight like a lioness just to get basic minimal access, and then it was denied, taken away from me in 2016, reduced to supervised only, and that was the point. I couldn't take it anymore. They were breaking me. They did break me. They hounded me out of town. The whole community excommunicated me, ostracized me. When you're being ridiculed and mocked and just gagged, and it was horrific. And
I can imagine. But do you have any visitation, even via?
I retrained. When I retrained as a lawyer, I did I thought I can do an application now in my own name, and I applied through the Hague Convention, the Hague jurisdiction, thinking I would have an independent judiciary, and it was handed straight back to the Austrians. Said they don't recognize the jurisdiction of the Hague. They seized the application, they seized proceedings, and it went straight back to the hands of the same judge who's denied me access continually over the years. And I've now been denied. All I was applying for was fixed phone calls, because the father, I call and call and call, and he blocks all my calls. He doesn't even let me speak to them. So I just asked the judge, please let me have 1 day in the week of a fixed time. She denied me that. I said, please let me have holidays. I first applied for holidays in England. Then I realized how far-fetched that was going to be. They were never going to let them come to England. So I said, I'll come to Austria. Then I said, let me just come every 2 months just for a 1-day visit. That was denied. Everything's been denied. They just want to erase me. They've essentially just erased me from the children's lives, and what's worse, denied the children their mother. And I pleaded with the judge. I said, they're coming up to their bar mitzvah now. They've been denied, their whole childhood's been stolen from them. But at least in these crucial years of the development, let me be there for them now. They're going to need the emotional support of their mother. Please just understand how much the father's alienated them and poisoned them. If I don't have a relationship with them at this point, then I'm at risk of losing them forever. You know, so many people say to me, they'll come to you when they're older, but that's not the case, because parental alienation is so insidious. It's when a vindictive parent, poisons and feeds the children lies and hatred against the other parent. So in the end, they reject and hate the loving parent. So it's not the case that the children will just come in of their own volition, because they'll be so poisoned by that point and so damaged. And that's what I'm trying to prevent. And that's why I'm fighting this campaign so hard now.
Madam Beth, Rebecca Alexander, you heard her painful words. She's our guest. Rabbi Moshe Aryeh Friedman, former chief rabbi of Vienna, Austria. He's an attorney representing Madame Alexander in the case. Paul Harris is the editor of Jewish Telegraph, who's taking a personal interest in this particular story, trying to get justice and have the children reunited with their mother. When we come back, we can take some of your phone calls at 212-769-1925. 212-769-1925. You'd like to weigh in, you have any thoughts about this particular case, we'd love to hear from you. You can also email us, zevbrenner@gmail.com, zevbrenner@gmail.com. And a reminder that today's Sunday, we're also going to be on WOR 710 a.m. from 9 p.m. to 10 p.m. And we'll be looking at bringing the teenagers, bringing high school kids back to Yiddishkeit, to Judaism. Rabbi Micha Greenland, International Director of NCSY, will be our guest. If you missed any of our past shows, go to all the podcast platforms. You can find us there, including on Vin News, Vs Nice. You can also find us on Instagram. And please check us out on YouTube so you can actually see the program. And please become a subscriber to our YouTube channel. And please keep those emails coming. Getting a lot of emails coming in tonight. If you'd like to win one bottle of the balsamic glaze dark color and one bottle of the white balsamic glaze, courtesy of Della Rosa 613, it's a $20 value. Please send me an email, zevbrenner@gmail.com. Put Della Rosa 613 in the headline. Please give us your name, address, zip code, and phone number. We're giving away at least 20 gifts of the 2 bottles tonight. That's zevbrenner@gmail.com. We're going to be right back. Don't go away. Stay tuned. This is the Talkline Network. Our final stretch, looking at a sad story about a mother who would love to have visitation, custody of her children. And from London, England tonight, Madam Beth Rebecca Alexander joins us, mother of twins Benjamin and Samuel. Rabbi Mosharier Friedman, former chief rabbi of Vienna, Austria, also joins us from England, as does Paul Harris, the editor of the Jewish Telegraph, who's taken a personal interest in this story.
My name is Matthew Watford, Beth Alexander's local MP. I'm supporting Beth in her attempts to gain custody of her twin sons. That predicament, and those many others like her, should not be happening in a fair, civilized country. I'm shocked that Austria's legal system has permitted this situation to continue to the point where Beth is no longer. This is not justice, and I will be raising Beth's case in the UK government and asking them to further pressure the Austrian government to recognise the outrageous unfairness and take appropriate action against this tragic state of events.
That is, Beth, that was your legislator who was appealing. So you've also gotten some of the MPs and you've gotten some of the British government involved. Have they had any kind of success in reaching out to the government in Vienna as far as doing something in this particular, in your case?
So in January 2014, the case was brought to the British Parliament, something that's unprecedented in a private custody matter. But the case was considered such a highly irregular case with corruption, as such a huge, massive miscarriage of justice, that it was deemed warranted to be brought to the government level. I did have meetings afterwards with David Lidington, who was the foreign minister at the time, but that was 6 years ago, and nothing's. In fact, it's only got worse. Nothing's got better, but it's just got worse and worse since then.
Joseph writes, is the father also modern Orthodox?
Sorry.
The judge wants to know if the father is also modern Orthodox.
To be honest, Zev, I don't know what he is. I don't know who the person I married was. I think everything about him was a fraud. So I don't know.
How long did you go out before you got married?
We didn't. I was very innocent and very naive. It was all very quick. It was a long distance relationship. It was 3 months. So from the time we met in March, we met a couple of times. I was studying at Cambridge. He was in Vienna. He flew over to meet me once or twice. I visited him in Vienna, and he proposed in June. We got married in November. So we didn't know each other well at all. It wasn't a shidduch, but it was fast-tracked as in a shidduch situation. So that was the problem.
Wow. Rabbi Friedman, I asked you this question earlier, and we got a little sidetracked. But my thinking is that you're trying different tacks. You're in Austrian court. You're trying to reach out to Ron Lauder to intervene in this case. Was there ever any attempt to bring the father to a bezdin and maybe put him in cherem, which will be excommunicated if he doesn't appear before a bezdin? Would that be helpful at all? Was that any contemplation on your part or anybody's part to do that?
We've recently had talks with the current chief rabbi in Vienna, Rabbi Engelmeyer, but to be honest, I have zero faith in a bezdin. The rabbi and mentor of my ex-husband, Rabbi Rav Pardes, has shown himself to be impartial throughout. In fact, he's actively against me. When I spoke to Rav Pardes at the time we separated, and I sought his help, he just kept blocking my appeals. And I said to him, but do you know he was violent? He kicked me. He pulled my hair in the marriage. Did he never tell you any of those things? He said, but you're not telling me what preceded that, Mrs. Schlesinger. Like violence is justified.
I'm not talking about going to a bezdin in Vienna. I'm talking about maybe there are two ways. You can either go to a bezdin in Vienna, or you can do a zabloi where you get, you pick one and he picks one, and then the third one, maybe even outside Vienna, maybe in the United States, maybe in England.
The problem is that he feels he's won everything. What incentive is there for him to come to a bezdin?
But if he doesn't come to bezdin, then he's in violation, and he can be put in cherem and be excommunicated.
But by who? By the community who are supporting him, who have colluded in this?
By the Jewish court. In other words, if a Jewish court summons you and you don't come after three hazmanas, 3 summons, then you can be in contempt of court, which would be cherem, excommunication.
He treats everything with contempt. I don't have any faith in them. To be honest, I've lost all faith in Rabbanim, in anybody in restoring justice at the moment. I think the best option I have right now is through Rabbi Friedman's application, the new application, and a new judge and a new set of proceedings, and hopefully we'll have a new judge with oversight and all this support from the world looking in and observing and making sure that justice is not only done but seen to be done, and the children are given their rights back, their human rights that have been stolen over a decade.
Now, listen, I'm sure you're upset with the rabbis and rabbanim, but in England, the chief rabbi, I thought, was very supportive, and there must be other rabbis too that went out. He went to Vienna.
No, I have to say, Rabbi Mervis, I have the utmost respect for, and the fact that he did fly out, I'm extremely grateful. I've expressed my gratitude to him for doing so, but unfortunately, he was stonewalled. Everyone in Vienna just stonewalls. They treat all my supporters with absolute contempt. Rabbi Kennard, my former headmaster from Yavne, my high school, he tried his best for years. He called Rav Pardes in Vienna, and he appealed to all the different rabbanim involved, and he was insulted, belittled. He came off the phone and he said, I've never seen a rabbi behave in this way before. He said, I'm embarrassed to share a title with some of these people.
Let me turn to you, Paul Harris. From a journalistic point of view, you've covered it in the Telegraph in your publication. Has it gotten any media attention outside of the Telegraph, whether both Jewish or non-Jewish media?
Yes, it's been picked up. It's been commented on online as well. But, one of the things I'd like to just come in on there also is that I had mentioned earlier, I was lied to blatantly by the head teacher of the Chabad school in Vienna. I visited him and I asked him that Beth should be allowed to go to the children's Purim parties, Hanukkah parties, whatever they did for Pesach, and that she should be able to have access to teachers so that she could be advised about the children's educational progress. Rabbi Biederman promised me that she would be, and he would see to it, and he went back on his word straight away when she approached him for that access. So from our point of view, it was important to keep it in the public eye. But ultimately, the most important thing is not publicity for my newspaper, for anybody else. The important thing is to get those children back to their mother. And this is, as I was saying, far from being a journalist in this now, I've become a close friend of Beth's, and I've helped to bring this into the public eye for that reason, but to support her whenever necessary as well.
No, because I think media, unless people usually, even in cases where a husband refuses to give his wife a get, a Jewish divorce, you've had demonstrations outside, you've had community pressure, which in some cases have worked because they shamed the individual to do the right thing. Obviously, he gave you a get, he gave you a divorce.
Not right away. That was also, we had to have an international campaign to get the get, and there were conditions offered to me. I would only be given the get on the proviso that I would waive my rights to fighting for my children, which of course I said I would never do.
But you end up getting a divorce, a get at some point?
Eventually, after many years of fighting.
Now, can you use some of those same people that help you get the divorce? Could they be helpful to you in your current?
Well, it's funny, Diana Eintro, from the head of the based in London, he was the one that flew to Vienna. And on the day of the get, he said at the end, he said, "Beth, today I've got you your get. Next, I'm going to get you your children back." But that was 7 years ago. I'm still waiting.
And has he been trying to get your children back, or after the get?
I went to see him when I first came back to London, and I reminded him of what he said, and he seemed to have conveniently forgotten his promise to me.
So
I have to say, by the way, he's suffering extreme ill health at the moment, so I don't think he would now be in a position to do so anyhow.
So from a practical point of view, you're going through the courts, you're trying to see if anything can be done there. What can people listening to us and watching us, what can people do to be helpful to your situation or to the situation here?
Firstly, I want to thank everybody so much. When Paul put the article on the front page of his paper, I didn't expect the reaction that we got. There was just this outpouring of love and support, unconditional love and support. Nobody questioned, well, how mentally ill is she? Like everybody in Vienna. I mean, the contrast between the reaction and the coldness, the callousness that I've received from almost everybody on the ground in Vienna, to the absolute love and compassion and empathy shown by everyone outside Vienna is just so stark and so heartwarming to me. And it shows, for so long I thought, is there no humanity left? At least it restores my faith in humanity. So everybody who's supported, I just want to thank them so much. They've given me the will to live, and they've revived me. You've brought me back to life, so you've literally been life-saving. What can you do going forwards? We're gonna put out new requests in the coming days at each stage, what we want people to do, what we think will be the most effective course of action.
Yeah, Rabbi Friedman, what do you think that should be done also? Because people who want to help out, and I'm sure any mother or father that has empathy for children, and even in the case of divorce, there should be exposure. The kids should have access to both parents. That's the healthy thing for a child.
I think, Zev, in practical terms, what Beth is trying to say, that we would love the whole jury to join, have a joint venture with the British jury in the case, and therefore I mentioned Mr. Lauder. But if the whole jury interferes, it will be the problem will be solved. I can assure you, if the same circumstances, same sort of case would have developed in a young Israel synagogue in the US, the entire synagogue and from the rabbi to the president to the cleaning person of the synagogue would have been united unanimously and invite the mother to see the children in their synagogue. I put both hands on it. So I think in this case, there's a lot of means, practical means that could be done from support, international support from world Jewry. And this would be a very, very great Kiddush Hashem if this happens.
Did anybody try, did you get Rabbi Mervis to call Ron Lauder? Was that ever?
I don't think so. But, you know, about all this, I think any other community anywhere in the world would surely be hugely embarrassed about all this negative publicity and try to do something about it. The other thing that's not been mentioned is that the president of the community, Oscar Deutsch, actually wrote to Chief Rabbi Mervis on Thursday after all this bad publicity, really whitewashing the whole thing in a letter that was literally said nothing at all. And this really is symptomatic of everything about the Vienna community. They either can't see that they've done anything wrong, or they're totally blind to it, or just don't want to know. But I have to say, my own community, I live in Manchester. If this had happened, there would be a groundswell of opinion trying to put things right. But how the Viennese Jewish community is not embarrassed by this, I don't know. God only knows.
Now, are there any other similar cases in Vienna where a mother was denied custody or visitation to her children? Is there any other kinds of cases?
I'm sure that there have been, Zev, but in most cases they employ such destructive tactics that you're too broken. They break them and they silence them. I'm a thorn in their side because I've spoken out. I fought back, which they never expected. And they also thought 5 years ago when they drove me out, they thought they'd broken me for good. They never expected me to make a comeback like this.
Where'd you get your strength from?
I have a wonderful family, very loving parents who have got me through this, and lots of communal support back in England, and just lots of comfort. That's been so comforting to me. All the support that I've had back home has strengthened me. Has strengthened my resolve to keep fighting.
I think Beth's strength more than anything else at her lowest ebb is this absolute undying will to get her children back. That's what gives her the strength.
It's the sheer injustice of it. You know, if they'd given me just an inch in the last order, even if they did just given me a phone call a week, I probably wouldn't have brought this to public attention again. It's the fact, it was the cruelty, the barbarity of it, zero contact. That's what just fueled my anger and frustration. How can you accept that? Did they expect me to just take that lying down as a mother, to never see my children again?
You know, we've said editorially that in Britain, certainly, there are mothers who have been in prison. There are mothers who have been drug addicts. They've broken the law in all sorts of ways, but they're not barred access to their children completely, even if they're supervised visits, but they're allowed access. Many of these have been rehabilitated, and there's nothing wrong with Beth. This is the difference. This is really, really corrupt, and it's a disgrace and needs to be righted.
No, it certainly does. And Beth, you're practicing law in England. Are you a solicitor or a barrister?
I'm a solicitor, family lawyer.
A family lawyer. Okay. So, and how's the practice coming along?
Well, I'm fighting for other parents' access to their children, and you know, I do have some clients who can be vindictive and they want to block contact. And as much as a solicitor, you're expected to act in the best interests of your client. If your client is not considering the welfare of their child, you, as a professional, you're expected through the solicitor's regulation authority to apply a certain impartiality and to advise your client to be reasonable and to consider the best interest of all the parties. And so there have been cases where I've tried to reason with my client, you know, do the right thing by your child, whatever your feelings, set aside your hatred and bitterness towards your ex-partner, and please just think of your child. But in my case, that hasn't been done. It's like there's a very emotional, his lawyer, my ex's lawyer, was so emotionally invested, and she was also part of the abuse. She used the same abusive tactics. I mean, she didn't behave like a solicitor. She behaved in a totally unprofessional manner towards me. she's in breach of her solicitor's code.
Madam Beth, Rebecca Alexander, we hope that you do get custody and visitation of your children. Your mother of twin boys, Benjamin Samuel, which is coming up in June. We hope that it gets resolved before then. So we appreciate you being here with us. Rabbi Moshe Arya Friedman, former Chief Rabbi of Vienna, who's acting as an attorney in this case. Thank you for joining us, as is Paul Harris of the Jewish Telegraph. Is there a web address? Is there some information where people can get more involved or be helpful? Are you soliciting funds or?
No. We're not asking for any funds. We're just asking if people could show emotional support, and please join the Facebook group, Reuniting Beth with Her Sons.
Anyway, thank you for joining with us, and we hope that by the next time we speak, this will be resolved. We hope and pray. And Rabbi Friedman, you have your work cut out for you.
Thank you very much. And if you allow me, finally, I can assure you that when Beth will receive Bezrat Hashem the custody that she will give for her husband, despite all all of what happened in the past, she will give him wherever the conditions are. She will grant him really full visitation rights without any problem.
And I said that from the very beginning. I was never going to deny the children their father. Look what happened to him when he was denied their father. That's always been my position, that children should have access to both parents and have a full relationship and a meaningful relationship with both parents.
Yeah,
Anyway.
Rabbi Friedman actually made a pledge, which was our front page headline on Friday. He said, I will reunite Beth with her twins. And he is very confident. He told me that he will.
Anyway, everybody, thank you for joining us. Good luck. And
If you allow me, Zev, to finally to express my greatest gratitude and respect for Mr. Paul Harris, and I think he is the best example in the world for a Jewish sweetheart of doing chesed. He devoted parts of his life, day and night, and sacrificed a lot. So I think it's my duty to mention that.
All of you, and you too, Rabbi Friedman, for what you're doing as well. Thank you, and we appreciate you tuning into our broadcast. Okay, we only have about a moment or so left. Stay tuned next for Lebedika Al Gordon playing your favorite Jewish music, coming up with a Surah. A reminder that we're here with you again on WOR 710 a.m. today, Sunday, from 9 p.m. to 10 p.m. And we'll be looking at NCSY. We'll be looking at their Kiruv work, and they have a $45 million a year budget. Rabbi Micha Greenland, International Director of NCSY, will join us. And you can watch us anytime. And you can listen to us at TalklineNetwork.com. We're 24 hours a day, WVIP 93.5 FM HD2. And if you miss any of our past shows, you can find us on YouTube. You can find us on all the major podcast platforms, including Instagram. And now Was Is Nice, Vin News picks us up. And when you go to YouTube, you can watch our program. We hope that you'll also become a subscriber of Talkline. So thank you for tuning in to our broadcast tonight.